live at 53 Beacon Street in Middletown, and I have the occasion to use the 2 mile corner daily, several times a day, if not more. Also, we use the Cottington Highway, I should say, County Highway Rotary. And I think I'm open-minded about the roundabout because I've seen them in action. I've been to Lisbon when I've seen the roundabouts. I've been to Ireland when I've seen the roundabouts. And in Ireland, they work perfect. In Lisbon, it's utter chaos. And I don't know how 2 roundabouts here in Middletown are going to make our drivers here really better. Because one of the things you have to learn to yield and respect the other driver. And that doesn't happen. Even as far as the roadway and County Highway, I had somebody cut right in front of me today. I mean, they're supposed to yield, they don't yield. And with the stop sign, or should say with the signals, they do have to stop. Even though you see them whiz through the lights, what's going to happen at the roundabout when they start going through that circle. I think that the roundabouts are good, but in a rural area where you don't have the traffic that we have, it's a line of opinion that they're not really designed for Middletown. Thank you.
Would everybody be more comfortable if the speakers came to the podium? Is that a better thing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Manuel Mello.
Many now we can tell us north. These roundabouts, it's like trying to compare apples with oranges. Not in this area. I mean, the signalized would be the best for this area. And I think it should be up to the people in this town to have their say of if they want roundabouts or signalized. We should not just leave it up to our council, because this here is going to entail a lot of the problems. We had a rotary years ago at this spot, and it worked fine because it was a single lane West Main Road. Well, now we got 2-lane highways. The rotaries will never work out within 500 feet. And everybody knows that they're here tonight. That's why they're here tonight. To have 2 rotaries within 500 feet is going to be chaos. And, the state had a plan already for this project to signalize, and it's only been in the past year that the roundabouts came about. And I know I agree with my brother, if you're up in Europe, when I went to the Azores, it's already for single lane, but when you got 2 lanes on each way going, we're going to have the biggest traffic problems you've ever seen. You talk about accidents, it won't be, it's unbelievable. And in fact, it wasn't the problem here, but there's more accidents with roundabouts than with signalized. But I believe that this council should have either show their hands of what the people want in this town, and so that at least we can see which way we're going. Thank you.
I think one of the things we need to keep in mind is we, as I understand it, are required to provide an opinion on either option in September to DOT. Is that cast in concrete?
That's correct. We came to the town, we wanted to basically get the town's input from the council to see which one you guys endorse.
Okay. All right, continue with the Mellows. Chris?
Chris Mello from Beacon Street. My main concern is that the lights we have now, I'm not a traffic engineer, but if you're sitting at a light and it turns green and the light 100 feet in front of you is red, there's no way for the traffic to flow. If we have the lights timed first before we spend all this money, I think it'll make more sense to see how the traffic flows. East Main and West Main, there's no timed lights now, so it's all trip lights. So the trip lights get all out of sequence and you go from one light, stop at the next. Green light, stop at the next. If we had flow on East Main and West Main, I think it would take care of a lot of our problems.
Thank you. Brent Boston.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Trying to avoid repeats, let me say a couple things. First, I think that the video of the signalized system is not well constructed. Let me offer two specifics. It is very apparent drivers are not allowed to make a right turn on red. It is very apparent that when traffic on West Main is turning left on the Coddington Highway, people on Coddington Highway are not allowed to have a green arrow or a right turn on red option, when we all know that would be very safe. I've seen the videos many times. They're not doing that. So the signalized system, if those simulations enter into the estimates of time, the signalized system isn't as good as it should be. I would also say, based on what I heard tonight, please look at a 6-lane signalized option. Have a left turn lane all the way from one intersection to the other for both directions. Yes, you need to take a little more right of way. I'll bet money it would still be less right of way taking than the rotary options. So I think that needs a look. Every roundabout advantage I've seen, and I've spent several hours on the web looking at this, is much bigger advantage for a 1-lane roundabout than for the much more difficult 2-lane roundabouts. The little tiny 1-lane roundabout is marvelous in place of a 4-way stop. That's not the level we need. The 2-lane roundabout may be better than the signalized concept. I can't tell. Also, I think a lot of us are uncomfortable with pedestrians. Do cars really yield? In these video simulations, we have brave pedestrians or they have a great medical plan. I can't tell you. I saw one place on the web that highlighted for pedestrians, you may need separate traffic lights just triggered by the pedestrians so they cross in between the roundabouts. And maybe we need that, maybe we don't. Maybe it's there so that the folks with a baby stroller or me in some years who need more time can have more time. I really can't tell. I'd like to tell you I hate roundabouts, because when we were in Ireland earlier this summer, it became code word within the family. Enter roundabout means something profane. Our GPS device told us many times, 100 feet, enter roundabout. Oh boy. But they may be better. I really, truly can't tell. But the signalized system from the video isn't a fair treatment of what it should be. One other small point. I drive a hybrid car, driven one since 2004. When I'm sitting at a traffic light, I'm not burning any gas. When I'm creeping forward slowly, I'm burning gas. And the hybrids are really easy. There's one in your future, ladies and gentlemen, because you don't even have to think about it. And forgive me if that sounds like a plug. I won't mention brands or anything. But it's really easy, and idling, it's off. Slow down, engine shuts off. Take your foot off the brake, engine starts up. So slowly creeping traffic will actually burn more gas and cause more smog, feeding into a roundabout than stopped dead at a red light. And again, I'm sorry to say, bottom line, I can't tell. Thank you very much.
I haven't been in Ireland. I can't wait. But are you driving, are the roundabouts clockwise over there? Because people drive on the wrong side of the road, correct?
No, sir, they drive on the Irish side as well.
So the roundabout's over there, you're going clockwise, is that? All right. Maybe that's better.
Councilman, I'm sorry, I just want to address something. I think, forgive me if I'm incorrect. I believe you said the current proposed signal option does not include a right turn from West Main Road to Coddington?
Right turn on red.
Right. There is proposed a right turn separate lane. So under the proposed condition, if you're going from West Main Road south to Cottington Highway, there is a separate right turn lane.
Right, I'm talking Cottington on to West Main, going south.
Cottington on to
From Cottington on to West Main. And it's just from one of the videos, they're all
Right.
just sitting there.
The issue with respect to the 6-lane section, you know, I always like to tell everybody, when I first started working at DOT, we were getting run out of town because we were proposing wide roads. So now we're trying to be a little more efficient on that. And think if, you know, again, the 6-lane option, you know, as Bob did mention, you know, obviously would work better for the simple reason of having longer bays to hold the traffic. Again, under those you know, peak periods where you would have that problem. But again, there is significant right-of-way impacts, and in many cases it may be, you know, rather than to an isolated one location because of the roundabout, it would be throughout the 2 intersections and would impact, you know, several of the existing businesses, you know, a lot more than just that one isolated vacant building. So it will have some pretty substantial right-of-way impacts. When you start to do some strip taking, you know, a lot of times you impact parking, and even though you're not taking a building, you're taking a row of parking, and that costs a lot. So that's just something we've seen. The other option is from a pedestrian point of view. You know, it's bad enough that, you know, a pedestrian would need to cross 5 lanes of traffic. Now they would need to cross 6 lanes of traffic. So again, that's just a downside to that issue. And again, like everything we've showed, there's some, you know, downsides and there's some upsides to it. Either option has some good and bad to it. And again, we're just trying to present the facts and explain that in many cases, we're looking to propose something that creates a balance for the vehicles, a balance for the pedestrians, a balance for the peak, balance for the off-peak. And that's pretty much what we try to do. So anything we propose, there is something that could be improved, but if we were to improve it, it might create another issue somewhere else.
John Magwell.
Mr. Chairman, just for complete understanding, it's my belief that the light at Smythe Street is not being removed. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The signal is there. It is included in the simulation. We modeled and analyzed the queue links. They won't back up into the roundabout or the signal. You know, so we did look at that and consider that. The roundabout option would create an island, like I said, between the 2 roundabouts and also on the northbound approach. So that would also impact Maple Ave.
And I believe at the last council meeting, there was some discussion about adding a signal between Valley Road signal and Cottington Highway signal. Is that correct?
I think the proposal for that light is a pedestrian activated light on Maplewood. It would allow people to cross safely from the west side of West Main to the east side. Am I correct?
Right, yeah, that would be considered, yes.
And one question that I have is the simulation didn't show any bicyclists. How does that work in a roundabout?
Bicyclists can either choose to ride on the road if they're proficient enough to drive if they're driving on the road and they feel comfortable driving with the traffic on the road, they can enter in the roundabout through the circle and follow the same path as a vehicle. If they don't feel comfortable we recommend them to dismount and walk with their bicycle and cross the intersection as if they were a pedestrian on the crossroads.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up on the Smythe Street light. Will the 4-way stop for pedestrian crossings still remain?
Yeah, the exclusive ped phase will still be there. So if a pedestrian pushes the button, It's an all-way stop, as understanding.
Can your simulation consider that?
Yes.
Question about the additional light. At a previous meeting, it was stated that it was the intention with the build-out of the West Main Road project that an additional light be installed at Rockwood. It wasn't a pedestrian crossing, it was a fully functional light. There were comments made about people that live in the neighborhood behind there, the difficulty getting out, and the answer provided by somebody at that table was that considerations being made to put a light at Rockwood. Is that factored into the flow of traffic?
You mentioned Rockwood, which is right at the...
No, that would be Oakwood.
Oakwood, right. Yeah, I think that was discussed, and again, that's not proposed by this project. That would be part of that Connington Growth Center.
It's not included here, but it sounded pretty definitive to answer the objections to people that live in that neighborhood that felt it would be very difficult and dangerous to proceed out of their neighborhood. And it was spoken in a way where people were led to believe that it was going to happen.
I'm sorry. Development's being done, I know it's not by the DOT because we don't do development projects. That's being proposed a separate through the town, or?
Well, there's a study being done on the corridor from Connington Highway down to Kennedy School to look at some options perhaps for economic development. And I think we've seen in that particular scenario a couple of times, pedestrian access light at one of the woods, whether it's Oakwood, Maplewood, Rockwood, whatever. But that light would also give people an access in and out the east side. So if we could clarify where and what that is, that would be good.
The reason it's being brought up is this is now the fourth meeting. Many of the people here have been to all four meetings. Some of the presentations slightly changed. And before we make a decision on September 6th, we need some definitive answers as to what it is that the DOT is going to be recommending. It sounded like the DOT was going to recommend a light at Oakwood to alleviate the traffic flow so that people from the Wood Road area would have better access getting in and out.
Again, you know, we're looking at this from the perspective of these intersections and what's there today and what could possibly grow. I mean, obviously the Connington Growth Center is very important for the town. You know, we're not perhaps sure aware of those traffic volumes, what they would be, and how exactly that might impact this. But you know, granted, I mean, just generally speaking, a traffic light further north would impact both options because it would just be another traffic signal. So
the folks aren't complaining about the signalized traffic option. They're querying the impact of roundabouts to their ability to get in and out of their neighborhoods, and more importantly than that, there always tends to be people that avoid what they think is a very difficult intersection. And with the roundabouts, many people have called me and think that will be too difficult and look for an alternative route. And their fear is that people will tend to use their neighborhood as a way to move from East Main Road to West Main Road rather than maneuver through the two roundabouts. So an answer that came up, that somebody came up with was, well, let's put a light at Oakwood. And just to let people know, what I'm hearing now is that isn't on the plan. That isn't under consideration. And what is in front of us is what we're voting on, not anything more than that. Is that correct?
Actually, Bob Brown here with the DOT. I don't know of any proposals. Does anyone here know what proposal for a signal? You're saying Oakwood at Connington Highway, is that correct?
It's Oakwood and West Main Road.
West Main Road. I can tell you, I'm on the State Traffic Commission. I haven't heard of any proposals. I'm not sure where it came from. This is my first meeting. I haven't been to the last three. I haven't heard it, and there's possibility. I don't want to dismiss it. That's a valid point. Potentially, there's a certain segment of the population does not like multi-lane roundabouts. They will avoid those roundabouts. That's a legitimate concern. There's also a possibility that people avoid congested intersections as well and use neighborhoods as cut-throughs. Chase's Lane comes to mind. So those are valid concerns, but you have to balance. And again, both options are absolutely acceptable to the DOT, as Lombardi and others have said. We can probably install the signal option for cheaper and quicker, to be quite candid with you. The roundabout option, more expensive, will take more time to design and implement. There are potential impacts associated with both of them. Some gentlemen mentioned crossing. They don't feel comfortable crossing 2 lanes without a signal. Right now you have a signal. Under the signalized option, you have a signal to stop traffic, through traffic, to cross. We do feel it's pedestrian nuisance because of reduced speed. It's not as difficult as you would think, but I think that's a legitimate concern as well. I think crossing now at a location you have a signal, as opposed to not having a signal, is a legitimate concern. The thing I can say to that, though, is you don't have turning traffic to deal with when you think that through traffic is stopped, and you assume that no one's going to run the red light or maybe turn left or right. So it really is pros and cons. Is there a clear-cut alternative that's much better than the other one? You can't. I don't think so. I really don't. Do we think the roundabout option is better? Yes, I think the roundabout option is better from a safety standpoint, capacity standpoint. I think it's better. Is it more difficult, perceived to be more difficult for a certain segment of the population to either cross or to drive through? I think so. I think I'm just being candid. I think a certain segment of the population is not, after even over a period of time, going to really be comfortable with those roundabouts. It's a learning curve. Some never learn it, never get through it. So I don't want to oversell this. I know listening to the crowd, it seems like we're giving you the hot sell on the roundabouts. I just want to back off a little bit and say, wait a second here. I don't want to oversell the roundabouts either. If the community's not ready for it, if they're not, if it's not what they think is fitting for their town, then I say it really is the council who represents the people. It's their decision, and either way, we're happy. They're actually in a very good position because both alternatives are for big improvements. So it's with the meeting, just what's the best one? They're both going to be a big improvement. It's just a matter of what we think is going to be the best one. Either option is a big improvement. So in that respect, whatever you decide is absolutely fine. And I hope I answered your question and all that.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bagwell.
John Bagwell, 587 Tucker, Middletown. Actually, I have a couple of questions. One was this. We did get a promotion on roundabouts, but these are 2 roundabouts that are almost on top of this level. Are there, have you had experience with 2 roundabouts that are in such close proximity?
Not personally. Two multi-lane roundabouts that close to each other. We don't have any personal experience. Other states have them. There are cars that have them. In other states, simulations show they work. Is there a risk associated with not being that familiar? Yes. Do we think they're going to have any problems with them? No, but there is an element of risk. Just like with the signals, there's an element that they can become congested very quickly with the with the back-to-back left turn. So with that question, no, we don't have them. We're confident. 100% confident there's not going to be issues with those roundabouts being that close. Not 100%, but pretty confident.
And, sir, when you showed us the pictures, did any of those include 2 roundabouts that were in such close proximity?
none of the pictures that I showed include that, but there is a corridor in Mountain, New York with several multi-lane roundabouts, seven roundabouts within 2 miles, and several of them are multi-lane.
Have you ever found, though, in your experience, you said in your comments, you noted that people were always pleased, but might have been skeptical in the beginning, were pleased, very pleased with the situation after roundabouts were installed. Can you cite any instances where the roundabouts did not meet your expectations or the expectations of the traffic engineers?
Yes, indeed. It's the same case with the corridor in Mountain, New York. The New York State Department of Transportation has had some issues with the roundabouts there. We were handed at the last meeting an article from a newspaper citing a higher number of crashes in the corridor in Mountain, New York. We contacted the New York Department of Transportation, New York State Department of Transportation, and the response that we obtained from their central office is that the number of crashes that were reported used on the news clip was erroneous. However, they do experience a higher number of crashes than what they would like to see at these roundabouts. The main reason for this corridor in Mountain, New York was to provide mobility to reduce the travel time, the average travel time for point A to point B, and they have been very successful in that regard. They reduced from 10 minutes to only 2 minutes for that 2-mile corridor. In the particular case of the crashes, they are experiencing more crashes than what they would like to see. However, the severity of the crashes is very low. There are not many crashes that require some emergency services. So to answer your question, there are some corridors with roundabouts that are not 90% safe as the one-lane roundabout. However, they move traffic much better, and whenever there is a crash, the severity of the crash is lower.
Okay, and just an observation. I'm sorry, questions were coming before you asked, but I wanted to see the simulations were up there. I saw no pedestrian control of lights. If you put right there, I've walked a few times across those intersections, and I had problems crossing Hillview Avenue, which is a sign saying stop for pedestrians. People from out of state may not understand that. And the thought of trying to cross one of those circles without the traffic light is scary. Anyway, that's my final thought.
Kevin Johnson. Good evening, Kevin Johnson, 143 Trout Drive. I'm a professional traffic engineer and a professional traffic operations engineer. I have about 18 years of experience in traffic engineering, and about half of that has been with roundabout design. First and foremost, I want to say I'm not anti-roundabout, I'm actually pro-roundabout. I've designed them all over the country and analyzed them. I've done corridor roundabout analysis in New Mexico, Los Alamos, California, Montana, Oregon, and actually one of the slides Francisco had up there up in Nashville, the one where he hit the truck apron balance, that was the one that I designed and analyzed. Having said that, I was really excited about this option that we have here for roundabouts and everything else. But looking into it, I can honestly say, and I feel bad about this, that I don't think they're the right solution for these 2 locations. I think the state's done their due diligence looking into it. But some of my reasons are as follows. And again, I really do think there's a lot of benefits to roundabouts, just like Francisco and Bob Rocchio mentioned. There is a lot of benefits to them. However, some of these slides here, every location is case by case. We have a lot of variables that we have to deal with to design these things. And in our case here in Middletown, obviously it's the corridor itself and all the public access points. We want to make it a gateway, that's my understanding. We want to make it a gateway, we want to promote pedestrians and everything, and that's great. But some of my reasonings for my conclusion is as follows. One of them is a signalized corridor. Anytime you put a roundabout in a signalized corridor, you have to be very careful, especially when you plunk it right in the middle. And the reason is there's something called platooning or progression of vehicles. When the light turns green from one location to the next, you you get a big slug of vehicles coming through. That can be a problem. It can, at times, it can over capacity the roundabout, causing it to temporarily go into gridlock. Another concern I have, and I understand that the consultants did analyze this, my street. It's a very close signalized location to the roundabouts. Probably under normal vehicle traffic, when a car wants to come out to my street, everything else, it should operate fine. But if someone pushes that pedestrian button, you're probably looking at 18 to 20 seconds of red all around. That's a concern to backing up into the roundabout. And I can tell you this from personal experience, which is not good. If you design a roundabout and vehicles back into it, you're going to gridlock that roundabout. And the problem with these two, they're so close to each other, there's a potential spilling into the other one and caught into the highway. Someone asked if they're familiar with any roundabouts that are so close. I'm actually familiar with them. I've designed them. I've got one now under construction in Amherst, Massachusetts. If anyone knows Amherst, it's at the corner of Atkins Corner. There's two roundabouts going in right now. They're under construction. They're approximately 600 feet apart. A couple other things I have is, you know, the signalized alternative is not a bad alternative. We have a level of service C. That's good for 2030. That's perfectly fine. We're in a very congested corridor. We're in a suburban, almost an urban location here. And anything with a level of service C for 2030 with that much volume is good. And with those left turning lanes, it's going to only help them there. Yes, there's a risk it can spill back into the others, but when you coordinate it, you keep in mind this whole corridor is coordinated with the lights. It can't just be two little lights here. It has to be looked at outside the bubble. You have to coordinate the entire corridor. Probably from Home Depot all the way down to the lights up at the top of the hill where Domino's Pizza is. The other thing too is there's been a lot of talk about pedestrians. Roundabouts are great for pedestrians. The only thing is we're talking about a two-lane roundabout, which is a different animal. There is something that's called double jeopardy, where a car may stop if you're going to cross the roundabout. The first car may stop, or a truck, you won't be able to see the other car. At least with a light, the light is the safest alternative there is for pedestrian crossings. There is some concerns, I understand these are conceptual, but there are also some concerns with the horizontal geometry. I'm not convinced that's all the right-of-way impacts we're going to see. There's probably going to be some more right-of-way impacts. And there's another component that hasn't been talked about. It's called vertical geometry. In other words, what's going to happen with the contours out there. You know, you think about that location, you think it's mostly flat. It's not. It's actually on a slightly downward slope towards Coddington. There's going to be a lot of earthwork that needs to be done, a lot of cutting and filling out there. So over at Walgreens, you're going to be seeing some walls and probably by Newport Bank as well. You know, in general, that's all I have to really say. I mean, I take it for what it is. Like I said, I'm a professional traffic engineer. I like roundabouts. I'm not happy that I'm making this suggestion, but I think, you know, to have a clear conscience, I think it's the right thing to do. I think my recommendation is to go with the traffic signals in this location. Keep in mind, there are other locations in Middletown where I fully support roundabouts. Thank you.
My name is Mike Murphy. I live at 102 Ridgewood Road. First of all, I want to thank the Town Council for providing this forum tonight. I've been to all of the meetings so far, including those for the Westway Development Project. I just want to say that you were asking about the Oakwood Road light that was actually suggested at the Westway Development Project at two of the meetings I attended for that. So. You know, when I first got started with this, I was just fully against roundabouts. I have to admit it. I was. And I've been reading and reading and reading. You could ask my wife, I'm up to 2 o'clock in the morning reading on the internet about roundabouts. And I can tell you that I am not against roundabouts right now. But I am against roundabouts right here. I don't want to repeat everything that Mr. Johnson just said, but I did find some of the things that he said on the internet as well. And one of the things that I found as I was doing my search was that we have seen the best of roundabouts. As a matter of fact, as we were just sitting out here just now, I'm straying from my notes, but as we were just sitting out here just now, we saw all these perfectly run roundabouts, and we saw crashes at intersections. Now that's kind of a subliminal message, you know, and although they're suggesting both equally, their imaging up here was just really suggesting roundabouts and showing all the pros for roundabouts and the cons for intersections. One of the things that I saw as I read on various roundabout websites, including websites called All About Roundabouts and Roundabouts USA, different ways that they're described as controlled chaos, not for all intersections. And you keep seeing this learning curve. When I was at the first meeting back in April, and actually this is for the West Bay Development Project, I asked about the learning curve on these roundabouts, and the learning curve was said to be 5 years. I don't know if that's correct, but I do know that at Glen Falls, New York, they're 3 years into their roundabout and they're having all kinds of problems with it. We host all kinds of out-of-state drivers, not just out-of-state, but out of town. And I know that there is this huge, huge push for roundabouts all over the country. And I can see in so many areas, including in Middletown, over on on Valley Road, boy, wouldn't a roundabout work there. But I can tell you that I look at this and I can see gridlock happening all over the place. I know for a fact, I live on Bridgewood Road, we already see cut-through traffic. People are going to be very afraid of these roundabouts. By the way, you mentioned Malta, New York, and you said that that was erroneous. Well, I just happen to have a readout here from Malta, New York, and I'd like to read it to you real quick. And I don't know if it's erroneous or not, but I know that it's out there. And to be honest with you, it's not just, listen, in Malta, the roundabout at Route 9 and Route 67 in Dunning Street went from an average of 7.8 crashes a year before the rotary to 45.7 a year later. That's almost a 700% increase. In Bethlehem, the number of accidents at New Scotland Road and Route 140 jumped from an average of 9.6 to 38.3. That's only one. I have many more. I have quite a few readouts. The fact is, they don't always work. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And we don't know. They said they don't know if it will work 100%. Frankly, I don't want to gamble. I really don't. I think that we could see an increase in our insurance rates. I think we could see a drop in our property values. One of the reports I read said that the volume threshold of a two-lane roundabout is 4,000 vehicles per hour. How many vehicles do we have per day going through that intersection, do we know?
The 2032 volumes are over 3,000. 2032 going on through Cottington. 2032 volumes 3,000. They enjoy roundabouts start, that is true, start to break down around 4,000 vehicles per hour. Three-quarters capacity.
Now, I have seen one report that says that we have 35,000 vehicles a day that go through those intersections. Do you have that? Is that correct?
Yeah, the daily volume is different than the peak hour volume.
Well, I do know that there's not many cars going through at 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3, and so on. And I'm sure that we're going to have points where we're going to hit 3,000 plus vehicles per hour going through those intersections. And although 4,000 seems to be the cutoff point, I'm sure there's a leading up to where you go over a certain amount, and it's, okay, you haven't hit the cutoff point, but it's really not running as well as it ought to. And I believe that at points, we're probably already there now with the roundabouts. Should you put in the roundabouts? I don't know if anybody has actually thought about it, but if you're traveling south down West Main Road and you want to turn onto East Main Road, the way it's going to work is you're going to have to merge with the traffic turning down Collington Highway, merge with traffic coming out of Collington Highway, go onto the access road, watch for traffic coming out of Hart Street, merge with traffic coming out of East Main Road and the Bank of Newport, go halfway around the roundabout, merge with traffic coming out of West Main Road, and take a right.
Mr. Murphy, if you could kind of wrap up.
Okay. There have been many areas that have seen an increase of traffic accidents since installing the roundabouts. Places like South Bend, Indiana, Raleigh, South Carolina, New Berlin, Wisconsin, Malvern, Bethlehem, New York, Wyong, Australia. By the way, I have accident reports all over England. They're not as successful in England as you might like to think. And in England, many of their accidents involve lollies. Lollies are buses. And buses, trucks, and large vehicles have a lot of trouble with roundabouts. And by the way, should they install these roundabouts, please be very careful. If you see a truck and you're about to enter the roundabout at the same time as the truck, because it's an accident waiting to happen. I have considerably more, but to give everybody a chance, thank you very much for your time.
If I could just mention a few things. We did check our estimate, and when the gentleman mentioned about the vertical grades and the wall weave, that cost does include installing a wall for the roundabout option. So that was something that was considered. Again, it's conceptual, and the further we get into any type of design detail, the more we find out that it's always the case. But there is a wall element considered in that roundabout cost. The other option, Mr. Murphy mentioned about traffic bounds. If they go up, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem no matter what you have. So either option, when traffic volumes go up, you start to exceed. The first question is, can you get that many cars there on the existing systems around? And when you do have significantly increased traffic volumes, really either option kind of creates there's an issue with either option. And just to address Mr. Murphy's issue about the subliminal options, again, we showed the presentation that Francisco gave was specifically for roundabouts. There wasn't a comparison. Again, I'll just reiterate that. And as Bob mentioned, we're not pushing either one. We can go either way. We just want to make sure the council and the people, have all the information that they need to make their decision.
Can I just add there real quick? I keep saying it's not a clear cut. There's no clear cut winner here in my opinion. There's no. Do I personally feel, we feel that one option is better than the other? Yes, we feel the roundabout option is better, it would work. Is it a lot better where if there's a comfort level from the community, then we still move ahead with it? I don't think so. I think if there's any discomfort or it doesn't fit with the vision of what should be at those locations, and we decide to go to a signal, that's absolutely fine. And I just want to make sure that there are a lot of statements said. Roundabouts in general are much better, especially the single lane in the right locations are much better in general, safer, efficient than traffic signals. Are they appropriate for all locations? Absolutely not. I agree. Kevin Johnson, I worked professionally, relationship with Kevin, top-notch engineer. I don't disagree with anything he said at all. We have a little bit of a different opinion on it. We don't see it breaking down, but respect very much Kevin's opinion and the points that he brought up. I thought they were excellent. And a couple of them, on the pedestrian, I can see the issue as far as operational issues. They're both a risk, really, right now with the back-to-back left turn lanes and with the unknowns of having them that close. Maybe more so with the roundabout. But we distinct the safety benefits outweigh those potential risks, which I agree. The risks are greater at the roundabout.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter Van Steven, Continental Drive. I don't want to repeat what others have said here tonight. I had the article from the June 26th Times Union in Albany that was referred to earlier. They did mention the numbers, especially at Malta, having climbed significantly over time since from the signalized intersection to the roundabouts. It's also quoting Mark Kennedy, who's the Director of Traffic and Safety for the State Department. So feedback somewhere. The State Department of Traffic Safety for New York as saying that 15 of the 20 roundabouts that have been put into the capital region, that would include the Malta Bethlehem corridor, have experienced higher traffic crashes. One thing that I noticed, and this is the first hearing I've been to, but I have been on the website and reviewed the computer simulations, and the critique of those, obviously DOT has done the best that they can, and computers do what they're told to do. In the simulation of the signalized intersection, I noticed at one point on Cottington Highway, when they're flying over D'Angelo's, that a black truck and a yellow car become one at the intersection. The problem with it, it's a computer simulation. If I had done it, I would have heard from my boss. The other issue in the flyover coming northbound in the roundabout simulation is a bus pulling over for pedestrians, a pedestrian walking in front of the bus and nearly getting clipped by a red vehicle of some kind. So there are some issues there, and I'm sure that DOT is not just taking the simulation into consideration, but in our computerized age, and I notice that at work with my younger engineers, they do tend to rely on the computer a lot, and real-life experience is far superior to computers. When a computer simulation goes wrong, that's a warning sign. So with that, I'd like to...
Thank you, Peter.